around your tongue, and then chains would go from that on either side around your back.
So if you moved
at
all,
it would shred your tongue.
Oh my God.
Shred.
Stop it.
And
okay.
I don't know if you know this, but your tongue bleeds a lot.
I do know that. Ugh.
I was just saying it for effect. But yeah, it's pretty grotesque. It's actually, because I'm going to go back to Taunton State just because like they had a lot of pretty gnarly torture techniques.
Yeah.
And this place is just as bad.
Ugh.
This isn't any better. The only thing they're missing is some satanic cults and boiling people.
Yeah,
but
right?
Other than that, I mean, they're right on par.
Jeez.
Due to overcrowding, the Eastern State Penitentiary eliminated the Pennsylvania system of isolation and penitence in the 1913. Afterward, prisoners then shared cells and worked together and even played in organized sports. By the 1920s, the prison housed some 2,000 prisoners, and more cells were built, including some below ground. The windowless cells then have nothing to do with penitence and everything to do with punishment. By this time, every cell was called home to 2 to 3 prisoners. In 1923, all female prisoners were removed and sent to the new prison at Muncie. Girls always get to go.
Okay, so they started out with 250 people, and now have 2,000 and growing.
Yes.
That is a massive jump.
And would see more.
Ugh.
In July of 1923, a man named Leo Callahan and 5 accomplices armed with pistols successfully used a ladder that they built to scale the east wall after holding up a group of unarmed guards. Callahan's accomplices were eventually apprehended, including one that made it as far as Honolulu, Hawaii. However, Callahan was never recaptured. Nobody knows what happened to him.
So he just like poof, disappeared?
He just disappeared.
Wow.
He was nobody ever found out where he went. So, successful.
I mean, lucky him, I guess? I don't know.
Unlucky for everybody else?
Yeah, I don't know.
By this time, the prison was also housing violent criminals and those sentenced to be executed. In 1933, a riot occurred in the prison over insufficient recreational facilities, overcrowding, and idleness. During this event, inmates set fire in their cells and destroyed workshops. The very next year, another riot occurred, this time over low wages. The prisoners short-circuited electrical outlets, started fires, and caused other disturbances.
Oh, that sounds dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but you didn't really have much back then. Fire seemed bad enough.
Yeah.
In April of 1945, 12 men escaped through a 97-foot-long tunnel built by Clarence Kleindienst, I think is how it's said.
Okay.
Kleindienst, something like that, who worked as a prisoner plasterer. The men were quickly recaptured and returned to the prison. And in 1958, the city of Philadelphia certified Eastern State Penitentiary as a historic property. In 1959, a new cell block was opened to house violent criminals, the last cell block to be built. It was the only one with electric doors. Though the prison housed those on death row, no executions ever took place in the prison. In 1961, an inmate named John Klausenberg tricked a guard into opening another inmate's cell, and he and that prisoner overpowered the guard to begin the largest riot in the prison's history. It took several hours for a large force of police, guards, and state troopers to reclaim the prison. The riot fueled discussions to close the prison, which had since been renamed the State Correctional Institution of Philadelphia. In addition to overcrowding, the prison was badly deteriorating. It's also to be noted that in 1961, the cell blocks became desegregated.
A riot just sounds terrifying.
Yeah,
like,
especially a prison riot.
Ugh. Thanks.
It's not good. I mean, these are killers.
Right?
These are some of the worst in the area.
Jeez.
In January 1970, the prison did close, and the inmates were sent to the State Correctional Institution at Graterford. After a riot at a prison in Holmesburg, the prison again housed some of those inmates, and in 1971, it officially closed forever.
That's a long time to be closed and still standing.
Yeah. Over the course of its 142 years, the penitentiary held some 75,000 inmates, including Prohibition-era gangster Al Capone and a notorious bank robber known as Slick Willie Sutton. More than 100 inmates escaped during this time, but all were recaptured except for Leo Callahan. While the prison was operating, 2 guards and several inmates were murdered within the cells. Other prisoners committed suicide, and hundreds of others died from disease and old age. The prison sat abandoned after it was closed, during which time it was heavily vandalized and trees even began to grow inside the buildings. The city of Philadelphia purchased the property intending to redevelop it. Proposals included demolishing the building to use as the site of a criminal justice center, a mall, or even luxury apartment complex. But in 1988, a task force successfully petitioned the city to stop pursuing development, and in 1994, the Pennsylvania Prison Society opened the prison for historic tours. Today, the Eastern State Penitentiary, kept in a state of what they call preserved ruin, continues to operate as a museum and historic site. It is open year-round for tours, and special events are held throughout the year. In addition to its long history, the penitentiary is said to be one of the most haunted prisons in the United States. For years, it has been investigated by paranormal groups and has been featured in several television shows. These investigators, staff, and visitors have all reported dozens of paranormal activities and numerous sightings of ghostly entities. One of the most well-known cases of paranormal activity documented was that of Al Scarface Capone, who was housed in the prison for 8 months in 1929 to 1930. Though he had the nicest cell in the prison, which included a desk, lamp, paintings, and a radio, he said he was haunted by the ghost of a man named James Clark, who was one of the victims of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in Chicago. Allegedly, Capone screamed every night in fright, screaming at Jimmy to go away and leave him alone. In the 1940s, both prisoners and guards began to have several unusual experiences and unexplained sightings. Many of these events involved spooky shadows and phantom noises. So, for more than 180 years, this superstructure has stood in one of America's oldest cities, housing criminals of all kinds, crazy, brutal, gangsters, and brilliant escape artists alike, in a place so dark that even one of America's most notorious gangsters cried himself to sleep at night. And it still stands, a true American testament to cruel and unusual punishment, where many spirits still remain silent, seeking the penitence they were once forced to look for.
Wow.
Mic drop.
Bravo. That was good.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. All your exits are wonderful.
It is very much my favorite thing to write.
I know. It's mine too, actually.
But it's got, it's at this point, it's 180 something years old. I know that, like, in what I wrote, nobody was ever executed there as the state executed, but
Right.
Lots of people did die there.
Oh, you've got to think. I mean, there are the worst of the worst type of people there. I mean, they got to take it out on each other. I mean, they've got, like, I'm sure any other prison has like a ranking system. You don't snitch. You don't do this. This person's higher than that person. And
It came to be that, but you got to remember in the beginning, it's like, I have this hard time conceptualizing the fact that there were so many people in a prison that never knew anybody in the prison.
right.
It's so weird. How many people lost their minds and killed themselves in there?
From having to be silent, and if you are moved at all, you are masked or like a hood or whatever the hell they use. I don't know.
I don't know what's better. Is it better to be in prison with a bunch of people or to just never see another person? That's a hard call.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, especially mentally,
Absolutely.
you know, like people need interaction
I mean,
with
what
people.
what if you go in there and you're already not that right in the head,
Right?
you know, and then they're like, here, have some saltines. don't masturbate. Stay in your cell. Don't speak.
Oh.
I bet they were ripped.
Speaking of something in particular I'll get to in just a moment that you just said.
Okay.
We've been watching like videos and shows that have to do with Eastern State, which we normally do with every episode that we write, and we kind of get in the mood watching all these things about what we're going to be writing about.
We get in the mood.
And we watched Ghost Adventures.
Yeah, we did.
And Zach was looking at the ledger.
Yeah.
The original, you know where I'm going.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
And it was the original ledger from like the 1800s of people who died and things. So they're going through it and it's like, oh, suicide, murder, this, that, the other thing. And then there was
death by masturbation. How hard do you got to jerk it to die from that?
What? Like, was it? I mean, I don't want to get into a lot of detail, but like, was it like an asphyxiation thing, like gone wrong? But like, it literally, that was the only word under cause of death. Like, what?
I don't know how you die from that.
And Zach was like,
I feel like,
are you seeing what I'm seeing right
If
now?
you were going to die from that, I would have been dead at like 17.
Oh, it just,
I don't.
I had to throw that in there. You brought the word up, and it made me think of it. And
because it was a Quaker driven thing.
Yeah,
like it was a very the prison was based around a very religious kind of structure. As far as like the whole thing was based off of the Quaker religion, as far as penitence. Like that was the thing. It was no violence, no executions, and the reason you were alone is because you were supposed to be one with God. You were supposed to reflect on your inner self and speak to God. And so, I mean, I'm sure they were like, you are not allowed to touch it, dude.
And like, you're not allowed to touch yourself.
Yeah.
You know, that's just part of the whole
No
thing.
way, dude.
Like, and apparently not speak to anyone ever again.
No, poor dude, number one prisoner, was in there for 2.5 years just for stealing like $30 worth of stuff.
Yeah,
not
right?
even.
Oh my God.
Oh, screw that.
Do you imagine?
No.
Oh,
Like that.
that's terrible.
Yeah. So it's just insane that, I don't know. I don't even know what else to say about that. But
I know.
But we got to move on. We can't just obsess over somebody masturbating to death.
Okay.
I'm glad
Fair enough.
I'm actually glad my daughters did not stay in
I know.
for this part.
I know.
But as the show usually does, I know you've got some stuff to talk about.
I do. I do. Now, I know I usually have a story, and I do.
Okay.
But it's coming. I have a couple things to go through first. All right, so here we go. Stranded and alone in any of the cell blocks at Eastern State Penitentiary, it might be easy to imagine why rumors swirl that the dilapidated prison is haunted. It's bitterly cold inside, pitch black, eerily quiet, and severely cramped. But these cells were built to be uncomfortable. Inhabited by some of America's most violent and aggressive criminals, they would house disobedient prisoners away from physical contact, sunlight, and the most basic conditions. If hell was a place on earth, this would be it.
Oh.
I know.
Oh.
That was my line. But that's not the only hell that prisoners endured during their stay at one of America's most historic sites. Its stories of suicide, riots, disease, torture, and murder are the stuff of legend. And if the rumors are true, some of its most tormented souls still reside within its gloomy walls.
No doubt.
Starting from the 1940s, inmates and officers reported mysterious visions and eerie experiences themselves. In fact, notorious gangster Al Capone, again, is said to have been transformed into a weeping and terrified mess who would send out blood-curdling screams at night, shouting for Jimmy to, quote, leave me alone. Is it possible Capone was being tormented and haunted by one of the many people he killed? Since it was abandoned, ghost sightings have increased tenfold. Paranormal researchers flock here to find signs of abnormal activity. One of the most definitive video proof came when ghost hunters filmed an episode inside the